Welcome, and thank you for participating in today's 15th annual CASE competition on corporate social responsibility. Over the last 2 weeks, 7 teams of Milgard School of Business undergraduate students competed in the Milgard internal CASE competition. Teams pre-recorded their presentations, which were reviewed by a team of volunteer judges from our community. This morning, the teams wrapped up the preliminary round by meeting with judges to answer questions related to their presentations. Based on the materials submitted and the question and answer session, the judges have decided on the 2 finalists. The 2 final teams will present their cases live starting at 3:15 this afternoon. Presenting our finalists today are Sean Schmidt for Group A and Joe Lawless for Group B. Sean, can you share with us who the winning team is from Group A?
I certainly can. I'm very happy to announce, after a lot of discussion and back and forth, that team number 1 in our group is the winner.
Congratulations, team number 1, and great work. And to teams number 2 and 3, exceptional work this afternoon as well. We're excited for you to continue watching the final round via our YouTube channel. Joe, can you share with us who the winning team is in Group B?
Happy to, Rachel. Thank you very much, and congratulations to all of you teams. In our room, after our deliberation as judges, we decided that the team to move forward is Team 6, Rainey, Gavin, Alec, and Rylan.
Excellent. Congratulations, Team 6. As a reminder, for those teams not moving on to the final round, we thank you for all of the work that you invested, and we appreciate all that you learned and we learned from your presentations. We ask the teams not in finals to watch their colleagues' presentations through YouTube. The team from Group B, team number 6, Joe? Yes, will be put into a breakout room until it's their time to present. For everyone else, while we're waiting for Team 1 to get ready, we're excited to share this video that provides an overview of the issues represented in our case. Thank you very much, and we'll see everyone at 3:15 for the very first finalists presentation.
And these days, the newest styles and clothes are cheaper than ever. You can literally snag a dress for $4, which is basically the price of a vanilla latte. But buying cheap comes at a high cost. And I know, I hear you. You're like, Wembley, what does that actually mean? And that basically means that fast fashion just works on exploitative labor conditions and is destroying the environment. Over the last 2 centuries, as the world has changed, our relationship to clothes has dramatically changed too. From an era where clothing was bespoke or tailor-made for each individual to the ready-to-wear era where pre-made clothing came in standardized sizing, and the current era of fast fashion. The fashion industry today looks nothing like it did in the past. And of course, not all change is good. Obscene amount of clothes, stealing independent designers' ideas, low wages, unsafe conditions and harassment, factory workers sewing pleas to help in their clothing. Yikes. But before we get into all of that, what exactly is fast fashion? You're right if you think it sounds like fast food. It's cheap, quick, and of questionable quality. Back to the topic at hand. If fast fashion isn't bespoke and isn't ready to wear, then what is it? To answer that question, we need to travel to a small village in Galicia, Spain called La Coruña. In 1963, a man named Amancio Ortega Gaona launched a company which would go on to become the biggest fashion retailer on earth. That company is now known as Zara Inditex. You may recognize its most famous holding, Zara. Ortega and Zara pioneered the fast fashion model. There are 4 major points. First, vertical integration. That's just a fancy way of saying the company does it all in-house, from design and manufacturing and selling clothes. This helps streamline costs and optimize the production process. Fast fashion is all about feedback. Designers receive data on what sells and what doesn't as often as daily. They often conduct field research on what's trending, and it's pretty much by just going out and seeing what people are wearing on the street. Onto a speedier design to retail cycle. In fast fashion, the emphasis is on fast. The time it takes to make clothing is now a fraction of what it once was. For Zara, which leads the industry, it just takes 5 weeks. Instead of fixed seasonal collections, fast fashion outlets generate the lion's share of profits through designs produced in season. Ready-to-wear collections are made and debuted 1 full season ahead of time. Finally, fast fashion is dependent on cheap labor, and those savings are passed on to the customer. Fashion has always run on people power more than anything else. Currently, 1 in 6 humans on Earth works in the fashion industry. It's massive, and for the most part, those humans live in developing countries. But cheap labor comes at a high cost. With globalization, the world's economies became increasingly linked. The promise of fast fashion was trendy clothes at a low cost, therefore democratizing fashion, in the words of Amancio Ortega. At the same time, companies like Forever 21 and H&M would provide jobs to workers in the developing world. It didn't work out exactly like that. Fast fashion companies have come under fire for exploiting workers. This has meant everything from child labor to forcing workers to handle dangerous chemicals and being grossly underpaid for long hours without a break. In 2013, a preventable structural failing caused a building in Bangladesh to collapse, killing more than 1,100 garment workers who were trapped inside and injuring more than 2,500. The Rana Plaza disaster was the deadliest garment factory accident in history. And while we now spend less than 3% of our annual income on clothing, compared to about 10% in the 50s, we have an absurd amount of clothing because fast fashion means that clothing is disposable. Fashion is also terrible for the environment. Long story short, more clothes made much more quickly for a fraction of the cost means a glut of cheap clothing piling up in our landfills. To get a sense of the sheer volume of clothing we're talking about here, let's do a quick rundown of fast fashion's environmental impact by the numbers. 150 billion, the number of new garments produced each year. That's more than 20 garments per person on Earth. 2.5 billion, the number of pounds of fabric waste removed from the waste stream, according to the Council for Textile Recycling. 60, the percent by which the amount of clothing we own has increased between 2000 to 2014, according to Greenpeace. But we keep clothes for half as long as we did just 15 years ago, leading to a massive amount of waste. 10, the percent of the global carbon footprint in the fashion industry is responsible for. There is no question that fashion is contributing to the effects of climate change. While clothing is recyclable, the amount of clothing produced has far outstripped our capacity to recycle it. It's gotten so bad that in April, China, which was previously a top destination for recycled textiles, has officially banned them. And in North America, the city of Markham, Ontario in Canada is the first municipality to ban textile waste from landfills. But wait, it gets even worse. Fashion is the second biggest polluter of clean water on the planet. Toxic chemicals used to dye and treat clothing have been linked to miscarriages, birth defects, and cancer. You have to ask yourself, is it worth it? We all love to shop, and these days, the newest styles and clothes are cheaper than ever. You can literally snag a dress for $4, which is basically the price of a vanilla latte. But buying cheap comes at a high cost. And I know, I hear you. You're like, Wembley, what does that actually mean? And that basically means that fast fashion just works on exploitative labor conditions and is destroying the environment. Over the last 2 centuries, as the world has changed, our relationship to clothes has dramatically changed too. From an era where clothing was bespoke or tailor-made for each individual to the ready-to-wear era where pre-made clothing came in standardized sizing, and the current era of fast fashion. The fashion industry today looks nothing like it did in the past. And of course, not all change is good. Obscene amount of clothes, stealing independent designers' ideas, low wages, unsafe conditions and harassment, factory workers sewing pleas to help in their clothing. Yikes. But before we get into all of that, what exactly is fast fashion? You're right if you think it sounds like fast food. It's cheap, quick, and of questionable quality. Back to the topic at hand. If fast fashion isn't bespoke and isn't ready to wear, then what is it? To answer that question, we need to travel to a small village in Galicia, Spain called La Coruña. In 1963, a man named Amancio Ortega Gaona launched a company which would go on to become the biggest fashion retailer on earth. That company is now known as Zara Inditex. You may recognize its most famous holding, Zara. Ortega and Zara pioneered the fast fashion model. There are 4 major points. First, vertical integration. That's just a fancy way of saying the company does it all in-house, from design and manufacturing and selling clothes. This helps streamline costs and optimize the production process. Fast fashion is all about feedback. Designers receive data on what sells and what doesn't as often as daily. They often conduct field research on what's trending, and it's pretty much by just going out and seeing what people are wearing on the street. Onto a speedier design to retail cycle. In fast fashion, the emphasis is on fast. The time it takes to make clothing is now a fraction of what it once was. For Zara, which leads the industry, it just takes 5 weeks. Instead of fixed seasonal collections, fast fashion outlets generate the lion's share of profits through designs produced in season. Ready-to-wear collections are made and debuted 1 full season ahead of time. Finally, fast fashion is dependent on cheap labor, and those savings are passed on to the customer. Fashion has always run on people power more than anything else. Currently, 1 in 6 humans on Earth works in the fashion industry. It's massive, and for the most part, those humans live in developing countries. But cheap labor comes at a high cost. With globalization, the world's economies became increasingly linked. The promise of fast fashion was trendy clothes at a low cost, therefore democratizing fashion, in the words of Amancio Ortega. At the same time, companies like Forever 21 and H&M would provide jobs to workers in the developing world. It didn't work out exactly like that. Fast fashion companies have come under fire for exploiting workers. This has meant everything from child labor to forcing workers to handle dangerous chemicals and being grossly underpaid for long hours without a break. In 2013, a preventable structural failing caused a building in Bangladesh to collapse, killing more than 1,100 garment workers who were trapped inside and injuring more than 2,500. The Rana Plaza disaster was the deadliest garment factory accident in history. And while we now spend less than 3% of our annual income on clothing, compared to about 10% in the 50s, we have an absurd amount of clothing because fast fashion means that clothing is disposable. Fashion is also terrible for the environment. Long story short, more clothes made much more quickly for a fraction of the cost means a glut of cheap clothing piling up in our landfills. To get a sense of the sheer volume of clothing we're talking about here, let's do a quick rundown of fast fashion's environmental impact by the numbers. 150 billion.
Welcome back. We hope you all enjoyed that brief overview of the issues that our students have been digging deeply into over the last 2 weeks. I'm excited to introduce our first finalist team. I'm going to allow them the opportunity to introduce themselves by name, but before that, I'd like to invite my colleague, Michael, to share with us the rules for the competition as well as how time will be kept for the students. Michael.
Thank you, Rachel. Welcome to the final round. The finalist team from Room A will present first, followed by Room B. Each team will have 15 minutes for their presentation and 10 minutes for Q&A from this panel of judges. I'm Michael, I'm your timekeeper. I will announce in the chat when there are 5, 2, and 1 minutes remaining. If the team is not finished with their presentation when the timer runs out, I will speak up and you must stop the presentation. If the team finishes before the 15 minutes are over, we will proceed directly to the 10-minute question and answer period. No extra time will be allotted for Q&A.
Students, you may now introduce yourself, and Michael will start time when you are done introducing yourselves.
Hello everyone, my name is Cynthia Guerra.
Hello everyone, my name is Genesis Vargas.
Hello everyone, my name is Keith Hayner.
Today we will be sharing a few initiatives on how H&M can lead to more sustainable fashion. In this presentation, we would like to propose how H&M can move away from fast fashion to more sustainable fashion. Now, what is fast fashion? Fast fashion refers to a cheap clothing that is produced and delivered to consumers quickly and that is intended to be worn only a few times. These garments are often constructed of poor quality that uses a low quality material to fall apart really easily. As a result, consumers tend to buy new clothes frequently. Fast fashion has a huge impact. fast fashion companies are known for creating unfair working conditions and unfair wages for supply chain workers. This is mainly due to the fact that they are often unreasonable deadlines. These companies have the ability to reduce the cost because they have the advantage of lower prices in markets in developing countries. Many brands produce their garments where they can enforce extremely unreasonable quotas and exploit cheap labor to meet those demands of their consumers. Not only that, but it also creates a huge detrimental impact of the environment as well. On the right-hand side here, we can see an illustration of a supply factory for H&M. This factory collapsed in November 2012 and is located in Bangladesh. Many of these workers sew clothes for H&M, and during this catastrophe, most of them were injured or killed. This was due to the state of the management and state of this factory. Unfortunately, workers were initially told to ignore the fire alarms when they went off, and when they eventually tried to flee the building, they noticed that the gates were either locked, emergency exits were absent, or they also noticed that the windows on the lower floor of the building were barred. Sadly, dozens of these workers were trapped inside and never came out alive. Now, slow fashion, on the contrary, consists of companies that create clothing that is meant to last a long time, often with the attention to fair wages, little waste, and a reduced impact to the climate. For H&M to be able to transition away from fast fashion to slow fashion, we believe it will require some work. We understand that it doesn't happen overnight, but it will be a process that can happen, and in order to do so, we have come up with a few initiatives that we believe will help: circular fashion, joining hands, and transparency. These are the initiatives that we will be outlining in this presentation. Now I'm going to hand it over to Devin, who will be talking about one of the first initiatives in our presentation.
Thank you, Cynthia. Throughout this presentation on our initiatives, we will be referencing several goals relating to the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. Drafted by the United Nations, these goals are a collection of 17 interlinked goals that are designed to be a blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. For each initiative presented, we will be including the corresponding target goals being improved. For our first initiative, we would like to propose that H&M adopt a circular fashion initiative. This is inspired by the quote, "There is no such thing as a way. When we throw anything away, it must go somewhere," by Annie Leonard. This trade-up program holds a couple of aspects that will aid in working towards H&M's goal to have all products produced with sustainable or recycled materials by the year 2030. This initiative will also help H&M work towards 2 of the Sustainable Development Goals, these being number 12, responsible consumption and production, and 13, climate action. How this circular fashion program would look is that when a consumer purchases an article of clothing, they have the option to return or trade in their old textile products in exchange for a personalized discount or bonus rewards for a future purchase. While H&M already has a similar donation program, it has no incentive to compel consumers to participate. This initiative offers an exchange to the consumer in the form of a more personalized discount or reward points that incentivizes for increased participation. The old clothing turned in would be recycled for material to be used in new products. The first aspect of this circular fashion initiative would be its focus on helping H&M with the initial transition from a fast fashion to a slow fashion company. Because of fast fashion, there are many articles of clothing in consumers' closets where their trends have come and gone and the clothing just sits, or it has become worn out. Because H&M is reaching to use more sustainable and recycled materials, it would make sense to tap into an already existing supply of materials for recycling, rather than sourcing and processing new raw materials. Because of the presence of COVID-19, H&M have reported a rise in e-commerce by approximately 30% in the 2019 fiscal year. With the Circular Fashion Initiative promoting returning old clothing, this raises a concern of increased use of shipping material. The second aspect of the initiative aims to address this. When a consumer receives a site-to-home order, they have the opportunity to reuse the packaging to return their trade trade-in items via postal service or directly at an H&M retailer. This ensures that the shipping material is being recycled properly, as well as offering reuse of the same packaging to reduce the overall material being used. The Circular Fashion Initiative is platformed to be a transitional aid for H&M to push closer to their sustainable milestones and become an active contributor to promoting sustainable and recyclable actions in the fashion industry. Now, I will pass it over to Keith, who will talk us through our next initiative.
Thank you, Devin. Our next initiative is the Joining Hands Initiative, and who said it better than Nelson Mandela? It is in your hands to create a better world for all and who all live in it. This initiative will focus on 4 different SDGs, starting off with number 1, no poverty, number 2, zero hunger, 8, decent work and economic growth, and 17, partnership for the goals. Joining hands with overseas workers is very important for H&M. H&M has 750 independent suppliers throughout the globe, 1,400 factories in Europe, Asia, and Africa, all employing 1.6 million people that work in the factories of H&M's business partners, while H&M themselves employs roughly around 179,000 people. This is leaving over 1 million people unaccounted for and unappreciated from the prosperity that H&M is enjoying. With our proposal for this Joining Hands initiative, we would ask H&M to join the Fair Trade Certification. Fair Trade Certification is a third party that would audit H&M's facilities for their manufacturing and make sure that they are conducting in ethical fashions. The Fair Trade Certification builds resilient communities, conscious consumers, mutually beneficial trade routes, and prosperous individuals. Our goal is that each of these trades would be done in a region-specific clothing line that would highlight each of these areas in Asia, Europe, and Africa. One line would come out per year highlighting each of these areas, and each of these lines would come out as Fair Trade certified. This would be a start for the Fair Trade certification process throughout all of H&M and hopefully all of their lines eventually. These Fair Trade certified clothing, when people see the seal, it means that it was made according to rigorous social, environmental, and economic standards, and it gives back to those who are part of the process. A part of the Fair Trade certification ensures a portion of the proceeds from all sales that are certified go back to the workers. This gives power to the consumers to give more force into what they're buying, that they want to buy a Fair Trade certified standard clothing. Next, we will be handing it over to Genesis and she'll go into the next initiative.
Thank you, Keith. We'll be going over the Transparency Initiative next. As Jack Welch said, trust happens when leaders are transparent. This initiative would help H&M towards the Sustainability Development Goal number 12, responsible consumption and production. It is important for H&M to build trust with their stakeholders. We know that trust is built through honest communication. We believe that H&M should not only report their successes, but also let us know what challenges they've come across. As Cynthia said, the fast fashion industry has been known to create some unfair working conditions, and we believe that actions should speak louder than words. Therefore, we would like to propose that H&M work with a third-party certifier. We would like to propose that they work with Fair Wear Organization. This organization conducts checks in 3 areas. At the brand level, they make sure that the production plans are realistic. At the factory level, they make sure that working conditions are good. They perform health and safety inspections. And at the employee level, they interview their employees and make sure that they're being treated fairly. They also provide the employees with a complaint helpline where they are able to voice their complaints. And we believe that this is a good tool to keep the companies accountable. They also educate their employees on Fair Wear Code of Labor practices. They ensure that employees know that employment should be freely chosen, that there is freedom of association and the right to collective bargaining, that there should be no discrimination in employment, and that there should be no exploitation of child labor. They should also know what a payment of living wage should look like. They should be aware of what is reasonable hours for work. They are taught what safe and healthy working conditions look like. And they are also, lastly, taught what a legally binding employment relationship should look like. Therefore, we believe this would be a great initiative for H&M to, it would put them one step closer to becoming a leader in the sustainable fashion industry. Thank you.
So in conclusion, we're proposing that H&M take on these three initiatives of circular fashion, joining hands, and transparency. We fully understand and realize that these initiatives are going to affect costs in a certain way because it's going to take more money to be more ethically and responsibly sourcing their materials and making sure that workers are paid fair wages. So we have found statistics from Fair Trade Certification themselves, and they've reported that 75% of people say responsible and ethical products is important to purchase decisions. As well, 1 in 3 people are willing to pay 20% more for products that are certified by a third party. And also, 50% look for proof when a company makes claims about being socially or environmentally responsible. So we believe that with these initiatives, along with the growing concern of the public and the consumers, that these would help lead H&M into being the leaders of change that they wish to be in their fashion industry. And with that, we want to help them transfer from fast fashion to slow fashion. Thank you.
Excellent work, Team 1. We now invite our judges to ask questions related to your presentation.
Great, nicely done. So you guys mentioned that that some consumers, maybe a third of consumers, would pay 20% more for maybe clothing that had a fair trade certified label or was otherwise sustainably sourced. How much more would it cost them to deliver these clothes? Did you take a look at that?
We delved into it, but it turned into be a rabbit hole. But the takeaway that we came with it is that it's an economy of scale that would have to be built up. With our circular fashion, it is going to be saving them resources from having the clothing recycled throughout the departments. It will take time, but the prices will catch up eventually. And with the growing consumer demand, as well from the same poll, the millennial generation as well wants more CSR actions and consumer needs. So those all in combination will lead to the prices stabilizing and coming up in the end.
Thanks, Keith.
Hi, team. Great job. So in the case, it says that H&M wants to use, I believe it was 100% sustainable cotton by 2020, all their products using more sustainable or recycled sources by 2030, and to be carbon positive by 2040. Do you think those goals are achievable?
Through our initiatives, I do believe that these goals will be achievable. It will take time and an effort, but that's what they're claiming. And I believe that they can if they put their money where their mouth is, in a sense. through each of these initiatives, it does address certain areas. The third parties will track their carbon emissions and make it known to people what they're doing, what they're not doing, holding them accountable for their actions. And then with the recycling, that will cut emissions across the production line as well, and as well as recycling through their products at the same time. So 2 birds with 1 stone on that. So it will take effort, and if they hold true to what they say and what they want with these initiatives, I do believe that those goals would be achievable.
Thank you.
Hello, team, and good job. So H&M's, their core business model is fueled by low prices and rapid consumption and fast-changing trends. Do you see your slow fashion approach being in direct tension with its sustainability mission? And if so, what must they do to realize that sustainable improvement?
I think one of the big pushes towards going to the slow fashion that would also help out is that when it comes to a lot of the fashion that they are producing, they can able to take a lot of the recycled materials and actually make multifunctional articles of clothing, which can in turn still be considered part of this slow fashion because you can use it in several different fashion trends, much rather than just doing like one little scarf that may go with like one outfit and then end up not fitting with anything else, but rather having something that's multifunctional to where you can use it again and again.
Thank you.
So thank you once again, all of you, for a fantastic presentation. I'm so glad that Adrienne didn't take my question because I thought she might. I and many of the judges were very impressed with your connecting to the SDG, the goals. So kind of a 2-part question. One, why did you guys decide to even do that? I think that was really impressive to go down that path of connecting what's happening here with a larger kind of picture. But also, how important would that be if a company like H&M were to connect a lot of their thinking and strategy to the SDG?
So we really decided to go for the SDGs because we recognize that the change in business right now is going to what all the 17 SDGs are pointing for the zero poverty, the reducing hunger. All these goals they're striving for a better world in general. And we all in our team, as Team One, believe that those goals are meaningful and need to be addressed. And the SDGs goals is to have all those completed by 2030. That is very lofty, and we believe that through the help of these large corporations where they do have the money and resources to back them, that's how we get these things done. So that's why we really wanted to get H&M to have these part of their process and planning, because it is a very important thing going in the future.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I think it's my turn. So it put a smile on my face when I saw your first slide. I just knew that it was going to be very well organized. So I wanted to compliment that. And I want you to teach me how to do that little index thing at the bottom. I'm going to steal your idea. So that made me happy, and it just made it more enjoyable. So thank you. So my question goes back to, and I love how you bring in the SDG, and it was just very well thought out, and it just really in alignment and professionally done. I have so many compliments. But question, fair trade model. It is a very expensive model. You know, it costs money to join fair trade. And I know so because, you know, I know that program very well. How is that gonna bring them closer to the sustainable, you know, sustainability, given that H&M is more of a cheaper fast fashion model? How, because it's very, very expensive to join fair trade and not look at any other model that could be more cost saving.
So we went for this model in particular because we were going off of what H&M was saying themselves. They want to be the leading in change. They want to lead the fashion industry for change. And what better way to really show that they are by going for these lofty goals, these goals that other people would be afraid to, because as you said, it's too expensive. But if H&M, as their large corporation is, they can go for these things. And if they do, they can show the rest of the industry that they are leading change. So we really wanted just to show them that if they're going to put these things on their websites, they can back it up, and we believe that they can as well. So that is why we went for that more lofty, expensive model.
Okay, thank you. I guess it's my turn too. So yeah, and I also really enjoy your presentation. I like the fact that you talked about fair trade, and you also talked about the Fair Wear organization. I think, yeah, sustainability involves all these things, making sure the factories and, are safe, and, making sure that employees are paid well. And I think overall you hit very important points throughout the supply chain, and making sure that, at any point in time, they are sustainable and they are contributing to the environment, social, and also economical factors. I have no question, but yeah, I just wanted to point out that I enjoyed your presentation.
Great job. You started the presentation, and I think you did a fantastic job of connecting with me on the problem of fast fashion. Your visuals are great. It clearly right away understood the issue at hand. The case study specifically asked for potential impacts to H&M shareholders. And I don't feel like I walked away with a clear understanding of what that potential impact is. So as a potential shareholder in H&M, what can I expect the impacts to me to be from your initiatives?
These initiatives will have a positive impact on shareholders, I believe, in the long run. It's going to take some time to see it, but it will happen. And this is because as the generations are coming up in age, CSR, these initiatives, these are what customers want to see. So as a shareholder, if you try to stay in fast fashion because it's profitable for the moment, it's going to bite you in the end. Without these initiatives and without transitioning out of fast fashion, what is not, because it is not environmentally sustainable, it is not ethically sustainable. So these initiatives will bring them out of that industry that will fail eventually into an industry that will succeed. If they resist the change, it will bite them in the end. So that's how the shareholders should see these kind of initiatives out of fast fashion.
And our time is up. Thank you, teams.
Outstanding work, Team 1 and judges. Thank you. We will have a very short break while we invite Team 1 into a breakout room and bring Team 6 in for their presentation. back, everyone. A hearty congratulations to Team 1 in their final presentation, and we are now privileged to welcome Team 6 to provide their final presentation regarding the H&M Group, fast fashion, sustainability, and COVID-19. I'd like to first ask Michael, our timekeeper, to share with us what the timing will look like and the rules for our competition. And then I will invite each of Team 6 members to briefly introduce themselves before launching into their presentation. Timekeeping will not begin until after you have introduced yourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachel. Welcome to the final round. The finalist team from Room A has presented first, followed now by Team B from Room B. Each team will have 15 minutes for their presentation and 10 minutes for Q&A from this panel of judges. I'm Michael, and your timekeeper. I will announce in the chat when there are 5, 2, and 1 minutes remaining. If the team is not finished with their presentation when the timer runs out, I will speak up and you must stop the presentation. If the team finishes before the 15 minutes are over, we will proceed directly to the 10-minute question and answer period. No extra time will be allotted for Q&A. Over to you, Rachel.
Oh, my apologies all. Excellent. Welcome Team 6, and we now invite you each to introduce yourselves before launching into your presentation. When you begin your presentation, Michael will begin keeping time.
My name is Rainey Betsina.
My name is Alec Eyrig.
My name is Rylan.
And I'm Gavin Eller.
All right. Hello, judges. My name is Alec, and today I'm joined by my teammates Gavin, Rainey, and Rylan. Our presentation will cover the fast fashion industry and H&M and their sustainability efforts. We will have 3 sections, including sourcing, standards, and sustainability, followed by key takeaways. H&M is a fast fashion retailer, which is concerning because the fast fashion industry generates massive amounts of pollution, waste, and greenhouse gases. Additionally, it sacrifices the quality of products and sustainability of operations. To combat these negative effects of fast fashion, H&M has adopted what they are calling a circular value chain, which includes designing products and packaging to enable customers to care for and later part with the products in a sustainable way. The company's goals, as stated here, include using 100% sustainable cotton in their clothing, producing products with more sustainable and recycled sources, and having a climate-positive business across their entire value chain. Although our team can agree that these goals are environmentally friendly, we do not believe that their current programs are strong enough to help the company reach them, which is why we're recommending a program called H&M and S, which is designed with meaningful initiatives across the value chain. The program is focused on 3 main areas, including sourcing, standards, and sustainability. Our first section is sourcing.
Our first initiative is improved raw material sourcing. Because of the negative environmental impacts related to cotton, we recommend H&M invest in different opportunities in raw material sourcing. In H&M's own words, they recognize that people are demanding social, environmental, and economic change. H&M's 2020 goal is still achievable despite the impacts of COVID-19 on their business. They finished 2019 with 97% sustainable cotton in their clothing, so the remaining 3% is still obtainable despite sales dropping by 21%. To mitigate that, H&M cut costs by 13%. H&M's sustainable cotton is not actually sustainable. Organic cotton is the most sustainable as it uses the least amount of blue water and no agricultural chemicals, whereas cotton grown through the Better Cotton Initiative only promotes responsible use of water and chemicals, which is the majority of cotton that H&M uses. Only so much can be done in practice to mitigate the environmental impacts of cotton. This is important because the World Economic Forum has identified water scarcity as one of the top 10 global risks. In sum, H&M is greenwashing with sustainable cotton. A true sustainable solution is hemp. It grows quickly without the need for herbicides, pesticides, fertilizers, or irrigation, while also replenishing the soil conditions. It leaves the soil and groundwater in better conditions than when it was originally planted, as it is a natural CO2 sink. Each ton of hemp cultivated takes 1.63 tons of CO2 out of our atmosphere. It rivals cotton in feel with added benefits of absorbing dye easier, which can also have severe environmental implications. Hemp uses zero blue water, primarily relying on green and gray water. It uses half the territory compared to cotton, and it even produces 3 times the amount of fiber from the same amount of land. Hemp also grows 20 to 30% faster. The fabric itself is not susceptible to shrinkage or pilling, while being highly durable. All these factors make hemp the superior fabric, so why is it not being used? Economies of scale in cotton make it difficult to farm hemp on a mass level. Machinery to efficiently weave hemp fibers into fabric is costly, at approximately $2 million. Supply and demand, along with technological limitations, also play a factor in the cost. There is bad stigma surrounding hemp, as it is closely associated with cannabis, but hemp lacks THC, which is the chemical component responsible for the high. Finally, hemp fibers can be very labor-intensive to produce. However, we see this as an opportunity for H&M suppliers to hire back workers that were previously laid off due to COVID. In order to implement hemp, we will incentivize and ease our suppliers into production. H&M will invest 15% of the infrastructure cost for hemp in return for 2% profit share. They will lead the way in sustainability, prompting other companies to follow suit in switching to hemp, thus growing the market for hemp, which will allow H&M to profit from their investment. Cotton is currently a $25 billion industry in the United States alone, and hemp is predicted to exponentially take hold of this market as a more sustainable and profitable substitute. It is important to be a leader in this emerging market to capitalize on the investment. With a slow implementation, hemp will greatly increase H&M's long-term revenue and sustainability.
We'll now move on to our second S, which is standards. Our first standard is operational, where we plan to consolidate, monitor, and enforce value chain standards pertaining to workers' rights, safety, and fair wages. H&M makes claims to be all about fair work, wages, and treatments throughout the supply chain, but as you will see, such is not the case, which only adds to critics' claims of greenwashing. H&M has various standards for their business partners, but the code of conduct only shows the bare bones. The rest of the agreements are found by searching the H&M website separately. H&M champions fair wages and workers' rights, but the reality is workers are mistreated and underpaid. Women working unpaid overtime, being abused, and working without breaks has become the new norm. So how does H&M go from looking like a leader in the fashion industry to one of the biggest brands involved in factory labor scandals? Lack of enforcement in their partnership agreements and disorganization of partner standards. To combat labor issues, H&M needs help holding itself and its partners accountable. First, H&M needs to consolidate all partnership agreements into one document, the Code of Ethics, so that partners understand what it is they're agreeing to. Within this document, H&M will add COVID guidelines across the supply chain, ensuring job security for those who fall ill, sharing proper quarantine techniques, best practices, and safety measures. To monitor, an independent investigation team needs to report back to H&M confidentially. H&M will send a member of the existing sustainability team to watch an order take place from start to finish firsthand in one of these factories in the news. The auditor needs to keep track of the number of hours the job took to complete and track worker breaks and shifts. From then on, H&M can use that order as a baseline for fair working conditions and wages to know how long a job will take to complete and how much it will cost. And if any factory underbids that, H&M will know they're cutting corners when it comes to workers' rights. Fun fact. In order to pay a living wage to factory workers, H&M would only need to raise clothing prices by 55 cents, which is completely feasible. Last comes enforcement. Nike was in the same situation that H&M finds themselves in now, with incidents of workers being mistreated, and they held themselves accountable by creating a code of conduct for minimum wage, hour limits, and worker abuse. And they audited factories and provided managerial and operational guidelines for factory management. So H&M must follow suit if they are to live up to their promises of fair and equal treatment. That includes finding factories that do not live up to standards and reallocating the Sustainability Committee to act as auditors. And H&M can also play a bigger role in creating a safe workplace by holding worker councils and encouraging whistleblowing to find out what truly takes place at factories. To be completely transparent, H&M can share collected data of analysts to better forecast demand to improve workflows and gain a sustainable competitive advantage. By implementing the new operational standards, H&M will enforce policies that are in place and hold factory managers accountable by demanding transparency in pay, working hours, and conditions.
Moving on from operational standards, we will now focus on environmental standards, specifically those related to carbon emissions. H&M has set the lofty goal of becoming climate positive by 2040. This means that they will have to reduce more greenhouse gas emissions than the entire value chain emits. They've been hammering away at this initiative by partnering with the International Finance Corporation, the Sustainable Air Freight Initiative, and the Pathways Coalition to lower emissions. Let's see how they've done so far. They've done extraordinarily well, reducing emissions by about 83% since 2013, but they ran into a problem between 2016 and 2019, and that's the plateau effect. And we project this to continue, putting H&M's carbon floor somewhere between 40 to 50,000 tons of carbon each year. So although reducing emissions is the first step to becoming climate positive, it's not enough alone. H&M needs to begin carbon offsetting to outpace the emissions that they will inevitably produce. Carbon offsetting is the investment in carbon fixing projects like reforestation, renewable energy, and carbon sinks. Certificates are then awarded representing each ton of carbon equivalent GHG collected. Moving forward, we advise H&M to partner with companies like TerraPass and Carbon Tanzania that exist in this space already, allowing dollars invested to go even further and lowering the cost per ton of carbon collected. So what does it cost? About $3.3 per metric ton, according to a 2016 study. They need about 60 million tons, which produces a final cost of $198 million annually. H&M's net income, however, has been hammered by decreased mall traffic from COVID, so our team developed a creative solution to fund the project without hurting shareholders. We call it the climate contribution. It's a small tax on all sales, and when we say small, we mean very small. Could be as little as 10 cents on every $100 purchase, and that price has the potential to decrease over time. Thank you. There are a few benefits for this. It silences greenwashing critics by proving that the company is climate positive. It allows customers to partner in creating a better environment when shopping at H&M by paying the climate contribution, and it beats the 2040 goal by making it achievable even earlier.
Our final section is sustainability. Our fourth initiative, Sustainable Staples, will develop a line of clothes built from H&M's most sustainable resources and ones that are built to outlast damaging fashion trends. H&M's 2030 goal is for all products to be sustainably sourced. They are currently at 57%. They've gotten there with their conscious pieces, which are created with at least 50% sustainably sourced materials, such as organic cotton and recycled polyester. But organic cotton is not truly sustainable. Some alarming trends in fast fashion is that items are still made quickly without circularity in mind, which is counterintuitive to their sustainability goals. Better materials, like hemp, could be used to be consistent with their sustainability plans. The current conscious line is also very small. We propose to replace H&M Basics and rebrand it to Sustainable Staples to incorporate new raw materials and promote the use of sustainable materials. The simplistic nature gives these clothes a longer life in their clothing rotation, and the sustainability efforts will draw in a new customer base to prevent any decrease in sales. H&M currently has 49 truly sustainable products, and the rebrand of Basics will add 400 more. We are also proposing to incorporate expandable children's outerwear into Sustainable Staples. These products are designed to grow with your child and the trends, ranging from 9 months to 4 years. All these products are made from 100% recycled plastic and will help H&M achieve circularity in its value chain. Some of the key benefits of Sustainable Staples is that we'll focus on products that don't go out of style, but keep fashion trends relevant. They will be created sustainably. They will further reduce H&M's environmental impact and help H&M reach its 2030 goal.
Our final initiative, Convenient Collection, is designed to build upon the current garment collection process and provide an intuitive, simple, and convenient way for customers to donate used garments from the comfort of their homes. The current garment collection program is an important part of H&M's circular vision, which is designed to decrease the negative impacts of the fast fashion industry. Their current process is facilitated by a company named ICO, which collects the garments and sorts them into 3 categories of rewear, reuse, and recycle. So, why is this process not good enough? H&M has a stated goal of collecting 25,000 tons of garments annually by 2020. And if you looked at the graph on the left, you can see that our team has predicted that in 2020, the company could have collected as low as 16,000 tons of garments due to the decrease in foot traffic caused by the pandemic. Additionally, we predict that it could take the company as long as 4 to 5 years to return to its goal using post-pandemic recovery models. Our proposal, Convenient Collection, is designed to boost their collection numbers and exceed their goal well into the future. How it works is simple. It's a 3-step process including opting in at checkout, returning the package with used garments for recycling, and receiving sweet rewards. The first step, opting in at checkout, is much like filling out your shipping or billing information. Customers would simply indicate that they want to participate in the program and choose the size of box that they would like to receive depending on the number of donations that they have, i.e. small, medium, or large. The second step, delivery and return, is also simple. With their order, we would include a return slip with postage prepaid for the customer to attach to the outside of their package. Once sealed, they would simply place it on their porch or drop it off at the local delivery service provider. The final step, receiving sweet rewards, includes providing customers with things like stickers, magnets, and benevolent feelings. On the right, you can see some sample designs that our team has created. Here, you can see the potential impact that a program like this could have for H&M in the long run. Again, the Convenient Collection Initiative is designed to boost the current collection program well into the future. Here are some key benefits to keep in mind. The program positively impacts the 2030 goal by increasing recycled materials for the value chain. There's also an opportunity to implement hemp-based packaging in the long term, which would help H&M reach its stated packaging goals. And finally, the program can easily be funded by increasing shipping rates for all customers by 10 to 15%.
These 5 initiatives of improved raw material sourcing, operational standards, environmental standards, sustainable staples, and convenient collection, in combination with H&M's stated goals, will propel H&M to the forefront of a new fast fashion industry where sustainability paves the way to a resilient and fair future. Thank you.
Excellent work, Team 6. We will now invite our judges to ask questions in the same order as earlier.
Great. We'll get started. I'm Chris. Enjoyed the presentation. You gave us 5 recommendations. And my question for you is, what if somebody out there that's also in the fast fashion space tries to copy those 5 or any one of those 5? What can they do to do those uniquely so that they can do so and also create a competitive advantage at the same time?
Well, one example. Oh, go ahead,
Gavin. Yeah, I'll take it. I think, Chris, part of our approach to this, looking at it from an environmental sustainability standpoint, is that some of these initiatives like carbon offsetting, for instance, aren't things that we look at in terms of necessarily creating a competitive advantage. Those are something that we would encourage others in the industry to invest in as well. But if you're looking at something like a convenient collection program or the sustainable staples, those would be an opportunity to potentially patent the type of clothing. So the sustainable staples, like with the type of material for the children's outerwear, that could be a unique type of clothing that would potentially be patentable or copyrightable, which could create a sustainable competitive advantage for H&M.
Very good. Thank you, Alec. I do want to challenge you that even if everyone does the same thing, companies can do things in a unique way and create a competitive advantage at the same time. So thank you.
Can I piggyback off of that just for a moment, Chris? I think a few of our initiatives, like Alec was talking about, would be great if everyone did. But a few of them, like switching to hemp, creates a competitive advantage for the future because of the large cost in the beginning. So we create an economy of scale that benefits us by investing in the infrastructure before the competition. So this is something that we're really emphasizing doing right now, rather than waiting till 2040 to try to get ahead of something like this. If we start now and invest now, we can get ahead of the competition, begin to build that infrastructure. We already have partnerships with the recycling program. So something like the convenient collection, a lot of our competitors can't adopt that immediately. So the things we've done in the past has helped us get here, and as well as what we will do in the future by investing.
Thank you, guys. I'm going to pass on a question so that other judges have a chance to ask one. So,
thanks, Joe.
Oh, I guess that's me. So on H&M's website, I noticed that they state that they're seeking to be a leader in the sustainable clothing manufacturing. And so based on your initiatives, if they are implemented, will that place H&M in a leadership position from an industry standpoint? If not, what additional options or initiatives would you propose?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Is it Adrienne or
Adrienne, yes.
Adrienne, it's nice to meet you. So thank you for the question. I think, like we were talking about earlier on Chris's question, by investing now, it starts to make us a leader because a lot of other industries haven't, or a lot of other participants in the industry haven't started to do programs like ours. So part of it is doing it now, and then we don't want to bite off more than we can chew. So we had a lot more ideas than the 5 that we concealed it to, but I think these 5 are really the core that we need to go moving forward to make us a leader.
And just go ahead, Rainey.
Okay, I was going to say there is a first mover advantage with H&M being the first in the industry. Nobody else is converted to hemp yet. That's why the barriers to entry are still so strong. Nobody else has figured out how to recycle 80%, whatever it is, of their materials from consumers. The only other place you can go right now to drop off clothing is Goodwill. And when you think of that, every customer thinks, oh, when I have donations, I need to go to Goodwill. Well, if we can establish H&M and place them as H&M's the one who's done hemp first, H&M is the place where you go to recycle your clothes for the discount at, they can ship it to my door, they use expandable children's outerwear. All of these things that we establish as a first mover will really cement H&M ahead of the competition, and people will give their dollars to a company that actually invested in establishing that infrastructure and those procedures versus people who just piggyback off of that. But also H&M, by the time the competition catches up, our costs for everything will have decreased with those economies of scale. So they will be playing catch up at a more expensive price point than H&M will, and a lesser recognized branding.
Great, thank you guys for that. My name is Sean Schmidt. I think I can actually disclose a little bit about my background, which is why my question will be a little more detailed. I actually worked at Nordstrom in one of my past lives and started their sustainability program. So get ready.
Fantastic.
And actually I should share, this group hasn't heard this before, I'm wearing a bamboo sport coat made by Xenia, a company that's been doing this for a long time. I have an upcycled hat on, used to be a sport coat, now it's a hat. And I actually have hemp jeans on by Giorgio Armani from 15 years ago. So it's been around for a while. No one's done it big, but it has been around, and there's certainly need to kind of move in that direction. And that's actually one of my questions. With hemp, there's some bigger issues still too. Things like dyes and chemicals needed for hemp aren't that great either, to be honest. So what are some of the other aspects besides just the pros of some of the environmental and even economic aspects and cons with some of the cost aspects? What are some bigger pictures with hemp that may need to be addressed by these companies if they want to go there?
Sure, I'll take that one. So the dye is something that we really wanted to touch on in our presentation, but we didn't have the time to do. Obviously, dye water is a huge pollution issue. There's Olympic-sized swimming pools all over around, just surrounded with all this dye-filled water. So the major thing about this is that even though H&M's committing to switching materials, that doesn't go away. So we actually found, from my personal background, phytoremediation as a solution to dye water. So if anyone's unfamiliar with that, basically the plants absorb and they filter through the water to get the toxins out of the soil and into the plants themselves. So it restores the pH levels and the toxicity levels in the soil. So even though right now dyes aren't alternative on a large scale, I mean, we researched into that with some natural dye options, and with hemp being able to better absorb the dye, we can use a lesser amount. And there's also different dyeing procedures like air dyeing and everything like that. There's so much we looked into, but we couldn't include in our presentation. So we've definitely thought about all of that.
And just to piggyback off of that, one of our biggest concerns when researching this case was some greenwashing efforts that kind of rose from H&M and their practices. So Rylan touched on it, but really their cotton initiatives and kind of the practices around cotton weren't as sustainable as H&M was presenting. So that was a major incentive for us to push the shift to hemp. So we do recognize the cons and some of the concerns big picture with hemp, but we do just want to press that in the long run, we think it's a better long-term solution than cotton.
Yeah, great. And just a really quick response to that, because I want to give the judges more chance. greenwashing obviously has its negatives, but there are positives to greenwashing too. If one company says they're going to do something and it's even slightly impressive, now all the other companies have to respond to that.
Mm.
And if they keep playing this game of doing better than the other one, guess what happens? We all benefit from that. So
of course,
keep that in mind. There are some pros, and especially if we push it a little more.
Well said. Well said.
My question will be really quick and simple. I wanted to ask you about the convenient collection. Do you think there's any negative implication regarding that recommendation? For example, wouldn't that add more to the carbon footprint? And also adding to that, you would give them the recycle another packaging on top of that. So what is the added value for that?
Yeah, so one of the concerns with convenient collection initiative was, okay, there's going to be an added transport. So if they were delivering the packaging, then there would need to be a transport back from the delivery. But in our research, we found that I believe the emissions for H&M of shipping was only 2 to 3% of their total emissions. And so taking into consideration the other initiative of carbon offsetting, we believe that initiative would offset even the slight increase in emissions by the added transportation. Other than that, I did mention the opportunity for introducing hemp-based packaging. And so H&M already partners with, I believe, 2 companies related to sustainable packaging efforts. And so they just recently in December, I believe, introduced recycled paper-based packaging for all of their products. And so that's what they're transitioning to now. But we do want to recognize that in the long term, there will likely be more sustainable opportunities for packaging. And so convenient collection would just give them another opportunity to try out those more sustainable efforts. And so our idea is that with convenient collection, not only would the return garments be an opportunity for recycled to be reused, but that packaging could be recycled as well. Obviously, if it's in good enough condition, it could be used for shipping out other goods, but it could be reused for the material if it wasn't in good enough condition to be reused for shipping.
All right, everyone, our time is up. Well done. I wish you could go longer, but our time is up.
Excellent work, Team 6. A round of applause for our second finalist team. Excellent work. Thank you. For those of you watching via the live stream, we're now going to invite our judges to enter a breakout room in order to deliberate and make a final decision regarding who our winning team will be this year. This could take anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes to 15 minutes. Judges, 2 to 3 minutes to 15 minutes is your range to work within. We'd like to ask those of you watching the live stream to continue watching the live stream, as it's hard to predict when our judges will return. And judges, please elect somebody amongst your group to be the judge who will announce our winning team. Thank you very much. Welcome back. Before we announce our winning team, I'd like to take a moment to thank those involved in making this case competition a success. I'd like to start by thanking our program manager, Anne-Marie Martin, for her work organizing the logistics of this event. While all that we see when we come together is the smooth transitions and the outstanding work of our students, a lot of work happens behind the scenes to get everyone here in a timely manner and ready to present their content. So I really want to just take a moment to thank Anne-Marie for the work that she's put into this. I'd like to also thank our volunteers for today, Michael Helzer and Aubrey Steffens, who volunteered to be our timekeepers. It is never easy to tell people they have to stop talking, and both of them have done this with grace and good humor to keep us running on schedule today. And last but not least, I'd like to take a moment to thank our judges, who not only devoted their afternoon to this case competition, but reviewed all of the materials in the preceding weeks, developed thoughtful follow-up questions, and created a list of feedback for every team involved in the case competition. These judges are Adrienne Allen with the Milgard Women's Initiative Advisory Council, Matita Chin, who serves as a corporate social responsibility consultant, coach, and educator, Michael Hurst, who serves as the senior tax manager at Moss Adams, Christopher Inverso, general manager and chief financial officer at Rainier Industries, Joe Lawless, our chief strategy officer at UW Tacoma, Sean Schmidt, our associate director of student planning and administration at UW Tacoma, and Philomene Yaboa, our financial examiner at the State of Washington. May I ask one of our esteemed judges, Sean Schmidt, if he would announce the winner of the 2021 Milgard Internal Case Competition Finals.
I am happy to do that. So I definitely want to thank everyone that's been part of this, from Rachel and everyone else. This has been a fantastic experience for us, the judges, but hopefully the students have gotten a lot out of this as well. As you can imagine, it was very hard for us to make a decision. That's why we were going up literally to the last seconds that we were allowed to continue to talk about these things. And it was a very hard decision because both groups did a fantastic job. Some things that we noticed that kind of stood out on each one. I think team one, it was the message, overall message that was really fantastic. A focus on the corporate culture and how important that is for this kind of transition to happen. And we mentioned this before, the connection to the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations was really impressive. I think for group 6, it was definitely the overall framework, very well thought out. The depth of analysis in the presentation, but also the Q&A. And I think just the 5 initiatives overall, thinking all that through was really fantastic. So with all that and all the time we took to discuss this and go back and forth, we are pleased to announce the winner of this year's competition, and that is Team 6. So congratulations to everyone.
Congratulations, Team 6, and congratulations for both our first and second place teams. We will be in touch with you regarding your prize payments next week. That's always an important part of the competition. But really for all of our teams, our first and second place teams, as well as the teams who competed in the preliminary rounds, we congratulate you for your hard work on this case and for teaching all of us more about the fast fashion industry. And for our audience, I'd like to thank you for supporting our students as they learn to dive deeply into the complexity of the social responsibilities faced by the business community. Wishing you all a wonderful weekend, and hopefully we'll see you all here again at the end of February for the Milgard Invitational Case Competition on Social Responsibility on February 26th. Thank you very much and have a wonderful weekend.